Hello, everybody. This is our first episode called Down to Truth. I am Chris, and this is my brother Jonathan,
Hey,
Johnny, whatever you want to call him.
how's it going? Jonathan Lopez here.
Yeah, yeah. So, obviously, with this being our first episode, there's going to be a lot of work in progress. I know, Jonathan, when we talked before, it's like you try prepare the material as much as possible, try to keep things on track. But sometimes you first do, it's like, what am I doing? I have no idea what I'm doing. But I guess just act casual, right? So just be ourselves. I guess we just try to focus on because God knows I'm a perfectionist and I gotta, I'm working on it. It's a work in progress.
Well, I always felt like our conversations, usually in the past, always do really well when it just feels like raw information coming out.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, if we're going to be doing any kind of, you know, any was it service to our name of the podcast, we can't just go based off of just opinion alone. So obviously, research is a huge part of all of this because we want to uncover as much truth as possible. And obviously, if we end up getting anybody that follows us through this and has information that we end up not getting right, I mean, I'm all for people sending me correct info on things so we can better or be more accurate whenever we talk about or discuss certain subjects. So I'm always
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
always enjoying criticism, constructive criticism. I mean, it's always good to be better informed and better uh, sources of information too for us to research through time, so we can give people a better outlook on things that are more truth bound. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And to add on to that, I think what you said is well said. We want this to be a community thing. We want, you out there to be part of this. It's not just, us hosting and we're just here to inform you and just share our thoughts. We want you to be part of this show. Like when I was back in my day when I was playing in my band days, one of the things we always strive for was, hey, we're not here just to play in front of you. We're here for you to be part of the show. And I want to strive to do that as well. All are welcome. I don't care if your thoughts are crazy out there or quote seem crazier out there. Um, Everything's on the table. Yeah, and then what we do is we filter it. We look at it. I mean, some of it may be a little not sticking on the wall. Some of it will, and that's the fun part. It's like a giant dimensional puzzle piece that we're trying to all figure out together.
yeah. And obviously my background is nothing in a sorts of with any type of theology or any education in any of this stuff. So I'm gonna get a lot of things kind of incorrect at times. But I'm also a person who loves to be able to get as much information as possible. My drive for information is there. It's just finding the proper resources to get it. So a lot of the stuff that we talk about is just going to be purely from our own interest, desire to learn this stuff. Not that
Hmm.
we've had any, special education behind any of these things. Obviously, the more we get into these topics, the stories, the more I'm going to start learning and being more, pro, how would you say, proactive or more on top of trying to get more people I know in certain subjects I want to talk about who are people that specialize in some of these subjects to talk with me on these things. Obviously, throughout the time we continue doing more podcasts, we'd want to bring people on. The goal is to bring people on that are have specialty in some of the subjects we talk about, some of the events that we talk about. You kind of get what I mean, right, Chris? Just
Right. No, no. Yeah,
mm,
I totally do. And with that too, I'm the same with Jonathan. Yeah, we're not, we're not like from the Vatican educated Jesuits or wherever, Buddhist,
yeah.
watch a lot of horror films, so, and I feel like that's been my best education.
Oh yeah, I got my
Yeah,
degree
yeah.
in I got my degree in B flicks.
That's right. That's right, man. It's all the Matrix, man. But I would say and this we can always talk about further down other episodes. But I could say in all just in summary for me, I've had my share of paranormal experiences that again I'll say for another time. So we're not sucking up too much of what we're going to talk about today. But definitely, my brother and I, we both been raised as Catholics. What was that term you used last time we were talking? Called what
We
Catholics?
are
It was
called, we are what you would call cradle Catholics, meaning we were
correct.
born into the Catholic Church at birth and baptized within the Catholic Church, probably a few months after our birth or our birthdays. But in some cultures, they do it right when you're out of the womb. Unfortunately for us, that's not the case. we
Shoot,
they
shoot,
give us a little time to actually be able to leave the hospital before they do our
yeah,
baptism.
yeah, they were so hardcore back in the day that they just had the woman just like pump out that kid right in the holy water
No, yeah,
and hallelujah. No,
no, it was a lot, but
no,
it was a lot more like more formal than
I
that.
know.
But but I'm sure in
Watch,
some
we're gonna
situations they
get.
called for that.
I'm gonna get an email from somebody saying that is not historically accurate. That's not. I'm like,
It
I'm
definitely isn't. It
joking,
definitely
man.
isn't it, but it is funny. And
But yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
Christopher, in my case, they probably would have done us actually more justice to baptize us right after birth. That way, we didn't get too much original sin on our hands. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, cradle Catholics. I like that. I like that. But no, and the variety experience. I think that can speak for both of us is not just the paranormal aspect. I think things, regards to UFOs. I've seen some things. Our dad has some fanatical stories. I try to find where he's at times exaggerating. There are times where there's truth and hopefully, I as kind of I feel dangerous as this is. I definitely want to get him on the podcast and just let him rant his mind off and see if what kind of response we get. That probably people will be saying he needs to go to a mental institution. But dad is very smart. He's got a lot of things he that pumps through his head
yeah,
too.
a lot of
And
street smarts.
there, a lot of street smarts. He's a great guy. He knows his military back. We had some really great conversations that I just would love to share to the people in the world and to see what kind of fascinating things they like, or just for entertainment purposes. And so, like, wow, I don't feel too bad or crazy like this guy.
Well, honestly,
But
I would kind of like it. People gave us subject to pick on,
oh, absolutely,
because I can
absolutely,
pick from a million things in my head, but really, I want to see what catches people's eye. I want
absolutely.
and
And you know what? That brings me to my next point. Anybody out there who wants to give us feedback, who enjoyed this first episode, and to help us on with other future episodes, I do have an email for us. It's called bound to truth34 at gmail.com. Bound to truth34 at gmail.com. And that's where we're going to start from there to get some information from everybody. I'm also getting a Facebook page set up, which is obviously called Bound to Truth. I'm actually hoping to get it finished up tonight. Send it out to people so everybody can search it. It will be public, and would love to see, and people can maybe connect from there. And so, trying to create many outlets for connection down the road. I'm hoping we could do where we can invite people on the podcast. Take, maybe one of the days we take a call at night. And by the way, I want to give a shout out to this podcast called Hollow Sky. Really love what they do. They're just I kind of feel connected. They're street smarts kind of guys, have their experiences. Really love how they're down to earth. They're very, again, very organic how they talk. And so this is definitely, I would say, one of the inspirations to doing this is just like it kind of gave me like, oh, I could do this too. This is cool. And just love how real they are. So there will be times we'll be taking calls and so forth. But again, we're trying to do it in baby steps. So um but other than that, anything else you want to say before we
well,
kind of jump into it?
if we're gonna do a shout out, I hope you don't mind if I do the one I've always talked about on the
Oh,
podcast.
sure.
So for
Yeah, go
me,
for it.
what's got me interested in the podcast in the first place, honestly, on Spotify, I was listening to the Catholic Talk Show, and you got these three gentlemen who do just a great job of delivering, such a such a formal context to everything, but also fun of the Catholic Church, different subjects, different things. I mean, and for me, being Catholic the way I am, there's so much history behind Catholicism that's just both mysterious, beautiful. Um, it's just there's so much. I mean, if you want to look I mean, we talk about Hollywood and how much it has to present into the world as far as entertainment.
Mm.
All you got to do is go through the Catholic faith, and you'd be entertained 24/7.
Oh,
You
dude.
don't even have to be Catholic. I mean, there's all kinds of
Uh,
things in there. So
there's some intriguing stuff with the Catholic Church that I'm still discovering,
yeah.
that that are interesting. But again, yeah, there then and again, people out there, let us know. You can ask some Catholic questions. Ask a Catholic. I don't know if you guys seen Dave Chappelle, and I hope this is not crossing the line, but I'm gonna say it. I was Ask a Black Dude. He has a Dave Chappelle one where they ask him, the dude, he kind of explains it, and it's hilarious. Paul Mooney is a guy. He was a writer working with oh my God, what's his name? Richard Pryor. You know Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
And Paul Mooney, guys, is hilarious. He's smart, funny as hell, dude. But that's why I kind of want to type these like, hey, ask a Catholic, right? That could be a fun little segue. But before we get to the subject, we're going to be talking about St. Patrick. I know people are like, dude, thoughts of podcasts on aliens, UFOs, and stuff, and supernatural spirituality. Well, for I would say an honor for my Irish boss, who's awesome, and to honor her grandmother, God rest her soul. I thought this would be kind of a great honor to start off with. There's gonna be some interesting innuendos we'll talk about, but we want to start off and kind of talk about this a little bit, little bit of the Catholic in it.
Mhm.
But before we do that, I actually wanted to. I'm going to kind of spring this on you, buddy. There's been a couple of recent news things that came out recently. Everybody's talking about it. Did you hear what happened at the Miami Mall on I think it was January 1st? Did you hear what happened?
No, I have not.
I am so freaking disappointed and surprised. Look that up, dude. Look it up during the show. Look it up after we talk more. But basically, there was about was it either 30 or 50 cop cars showed up. Right? They showed up to this mall. People were running out crazy scared. Okay, like crazy. And the rumor mill is that what happened was, well, first the actual official statement, from what I understand, it was a bunch of kids starting fights and lighting fireworks in a mall, right?
Hmm.
And here's the thing. I've never heard a freaking whole police department showing up. And there's a video on how many cop cars there. It's insane. Like you'd be like, what the heck? Right? What the hell, man? And the news report saying the people behind the scenes, the camera saying that's not true, right? What they're saying is that they saw these 7 to 10 beings walking around in the mall that just appeared, that kind of glitched in and out. And this guy who had a great attention to talking, I forgot his name, said that they were 7 to 10 feet tall, black guys, right, roaming around the mall, right, and people just ran out in panic. And I'm giving you a summary version, right? And I've listened to both
You
sides of the
said you
argument,
said black eyes.
like like black guys, and assuming
Oh.
maybe it's like the gray alien, right? But they were phasing in and out is the wording, right?
Mhm.
And there's actually supposedly one on film from a helicopter view, and there's another one supposedly caught a picture of. But again, I can't validate to say those are real. The one from the helicopter view that you see this being kind of phasing out, walking right in front of the cop cars is quite interesting. Some are saying it's cop shadows, but it's like that's freaking weird. But here's the weird thing: there was no body cam footage of the cops, right? You know how body cam footage that you're supposed to have for public use, transparency. The second thing is, if there was a freaking riot going on, or like students lighting fireworks or anything like that, someone would have caught that on camera, right? Like to me, that as stupid as it sounds, it's not something unheard. Like people are doing stupid stuff. Like how people record fights. Like people don't really help each other. Boys record a fight, they get stupid that way. They post on YouTube. There was none of that. There was people running for their lives. I mean, I got to be honest. There's a couple of people who were like 300 pounders sprinting, dude. It was, I mean, something scared them. I never seen people run that. The big guy run fast for. It's pretty incredible. But then other people on the other side, well, like, why isn't there any photos or videos like in the mall of these beings? And the guy made a point saying, listen, when you're scared for your life and frozen in fear, you're not staying around. You don't know what the hell it is, right? And the other rumor mill is that the cops that were there were supposedly asking to see the phones of everybody to delete video and footage. Um, but with that information, what do you think about that?
Oh, well, in my opinion, Christopher, there's either one or two things going on. You know me, I'm gonna tell you the light side of things.
All right, go for it.
One or two things going on. That mall must have been having a galactic sale, okay, of discounted, and it was
Lightsabers.
just so good they just couldn't pass it up. Now the problem was is we tend to discriminate here in America still. All right, you know these poor suckers. You know they're like, hey man, you know we're just here on visa. We're just trying to buy some goods. You know, take back. It's a better deal here than it is in whatever planet they came from, probably Uranus.
Which hey, what's your name? Antonio Montana, a political refugee. No, sorry, go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, but
Continue. Yeah, yeah.
and the second thing, Christopher, is if aliens are going to come here, if they're going to come to America, they got to get a job. All right, they got to pay taxes. They got to do their citizens right. They got to vote. All right,
Right.
because I'm tired of illegal aliens coming here and not doing their job. All right, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing.
No, I know. Hey,
Honestly,
that was
if I were to
that
be,
was good. I
yeah,
like that.
if
Yeah.
I were to give an honest opinion, to me it sounds a little too well orchestrated to actually be something that could be realistic. Because I'll tell you why. If this was the truth,
Yeah.
if this was
Yeah.
the truth, if these people truly found these things, if these people truly went through this process of experiencing this, if this is true, there would be no holds back on the news of it, right? And we're not talking about news in the news we see on TV. Obviously, there's a little more control and hold on that, but we're talking about an outrageous, news of social, web based news. I mean, in my opinion, this a lot of it seems almost kind of well. Okay, so me, I don't really like politics very much, but if I were to be honest about it, there's always this great tragedy or great thing that always pops up, or all these distractions that pop up during election season.
Right.
And this would be a great distraction to get people off, whatever is going on in the political world, which honestly I think everybody's okay with. I look at all I look at all forms of entertainment as distractions as it is. Like I just choose what I want to be distracted with, right?
Right.
And for me, I just feel like it's just it could be a distraction for some individuals, or it could be real. Who knows? Who knows the truth? I mean, we don't know the truth behind what actually happened. But to me, it
Right.
feels like the truth that they're releasing really is aimed towards people just being so driven to wanting to know more about it. You know,
Right.
it's like let's give them a taste of what a taste of that it's being covered up to drive them crazy about wanting to find out more.
Right.
Um, to me, if these things were to appear, a mall of all places just doesn't seem to fit the description of where they'd want to go.
Well, maybe Scotty from Star Trek beamed him down the wrong coordinates, bro.
Yeah. All I know if I
I'm gonna play a prank on these guys and freak out the humans. Take that. That's for stealing my lunch, dude. But no, and that's a good point. Jonathan is it could be a psyop. Who knows? You're right. Again, we could go on forever on this one, but and you know what? We can maybe talk more about it later on. This again, a lot of inspired. Like you and I, we talked about before. We got so much material, it's ridiculous, right? But that's something we could talk more about that too. On a side note, before we move to another weekly news thing, that shouldn't take us too long. Is there was some breaking news from a guy named there's actually a show called Redacted. I really encourage people to watch Redacted on YouTube. I think they're fantastic. They're also on Rumble. very fact driven. It's hosted by a husband and wife. God forgive me for not knowing the names, but the show is called Redacted. Great freaking show. Really like it. And this guy who's a whistleblower, I think his name is John Madden. No, not is it John Madden? Probably John Madden. Or no, John Stewart. Why I think of John Madden? I don't know. That's we'll dive into that. But his name is John Stewart, not the comedian, the host of the Daily Show and all that stuff. But this guy's name is John Stewart. Incredible guy. He's got a lot of personality, but supposedly there was a whistleblower he talked to from the source saying that we actually do. Everybody knows about the news about David Grush and the whole UFO thing that's happening and how this news is coming out again. Another episode. But what's interesting is that supposedly, and I'll keep this short as possible, is that the rumor was at first that we cannot redo these things, right? We cannot because the technology is so far advanced, right? And that would be understandable. But what happened, I know this for sure that's around the mill consistently is that when we had these crashes that happened, right? Like the Roswell 1947, the government contracts people, right? Like say that the government needs a building to be built. What are you gonna do? You're gonna find a contractor to build it, right? So you have a contract with them. They're privately owned, right? Even though the government and the military have to be disclosed to a level without compromise secrecy, those contractors who are private, who are owned, they don't have that same type of responsibility. So what do? When you take material like alien, like UFO crashes, you give it to private companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon. You know who those companies are, right?
Not familiar with them. No, I'm not familiar with any of this
Okay.
stuff. But yeah, I'm listening though. I've
Okay.
heard of them.
Okay. But yeah, you got it. You did. You reread that, you'll blow your socks off. But supposedly they were able to reverse engineer, and supposedly they've been lying to the government about it, saying, "No, we just can't do it. It's not working." But they were trying to privateer profiting from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And supposedly back in 2004, there was a crash that happened in Nevada, in a small area that there was. You had Lockheed Martin trying to capture, or like example, Lockheed Martin trying to capture, recover their craft that they were able to reverse engineer, right? But the military didn't know nothing about it. Again, they're hiding from the military. It's lying to say we didn't reverse engineer, but we did, right? And so you had the military come out to go because they didn't know what the hell that was. They thought, "Holy crap, is this a UFO?" Right? There was supposedly an ambush fight. Two military officers lost their lives in a battle from private mercenary contractors from Lockheed Martin and the military to recover this craft, a craft that they supposedly reverse engineered from alien tech that the government didn't know when they were told that they couldn't reverse engineer it. So the interesting thing about this, what I find interesting, is that all these years we're thinking the government hides everything, the government they know everything. You know what? Maybe they don't know everything. Maybe certain people because it's off the books, right? You know, and that's why you don't see it electronically. What do you call it? Recorded, because they're out to the private contractors that don't answer to the U.S. people,
Yeah.
right? And so there was so much. It's like a Chinese box, right? You open a box, there's another box, right? You open a box, it's like this. How deep is the rabbit hole? Anyways,
I mean, like the
I wanted
Russian
to share that
dolls,
before we started.
like a Russian doll.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah. But quickly, any thoughts on that? I know we'll move to our subject, but I thought that I just
Well,
wanted to get it out there because I thought it was pretty interesting.
unfortunately for us in humanity, and not all humanity, but some humanity, profit seems to be the agenda in a lot of situations. So profit and power, power and profit. It's unfortunate if it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. You know,
I agree with
it
that.
doesn't
Right?
surprise me that somebody would take something, try to re-engineer it and keep it to themselves. And really when it comes down to, Christopher, it comes down to fear-based mentality. These individuals, they want to be on top so bad because they don't want to lose what they have. That
Hmm.
things like foreign material that's unknown to to us are just undiscovered yet, right?
Right.
It has potential to do certain things. It's either going to be used for one or two things, profit or power, because these individuals just don't want to lose what they have and that they feel like they've rightfully gained in this life. If anything, there's some clarity that we can come from this is, let's say, like God, for instance, were to bestow a power upon people, right? And
Right.
someone were to steal that power, I mean, it really shows God, in a sense, where we're still at in humanity. We haven't
Hmm.
changed much from civilization years ago if we're still doing things in secrecy. And as far as the government goes, anybody in a government situation that does know of what's going on truly, they don't really know a whole lot. It's like a pay scale, right? You
Well,
know,
it's
you only
compartmentalized.
know so much
Yeah.
information. You're paid to not know a lot of the time.
You're paid to study this and only this.
Yeah,
You're paid to do this
and
part.
every official
Yeah.
that we think knows more than what they do, they probably actually don't. Really, they're on a pay scale to where they're just told to, like, hey, just look and turn a blind eye. And in some in some aspects, it's almost like, look, the less I know, the better for me. Pay me, to just be where I'm at in position, and I don't have to know any of this stuff. I mean, it's really just a transfer of power too. It's sad, but
Yeah.
if anything, I would say, Christopher, is if this was real, technology that was given to or taken by them, doesn't it seem almost like a test? I
In
mean,
what way a test? Like from who? From who? From the people? From supposedly these
if
entities?
let's say
What do you
let's
mean?
say let's say God allowed the veil to be lifted, and there's certain entities, let's say angels or technology in a sense given from the heavens. Okay,
Well, we could talk about that all day with the Nephilims, right? Everything's
yeah,
permissible, but not everything's beneficial.
but God, people say God doesn't test us, but God puts us through tests. Okay,
Right. Right.
it's known if you look at certain people within the Bible. It's not testing us whether we're good or bad. It's just testing who we are as people, who we are
Right.
as individuals. And honestly, to receive something like alien technology, what we call alien, we don't really know where it came from. I believe there's heavens above us, and to be given something from that and see how we're going to use is really kind of a test of what kind of,
Well,
I don't,
yeah.
I mean, it's really kind of a hard subject for me to touch on because I don't know a whole lot
Well,
about it. But
well, what we'll do the next time, and the next time we'll discuss an episode, I'll provide even more material or things for you to research there because I think you have some great insight and grasp with just what you're doing right now. But what I would say is, yeah, it could be permissible to test us, and and that could be a possibility. Alien beings, extra dimensional. I mean, the Bible talks about different planes of heaven, right?
mhm.
Different planes. Look at CERN. You know who CERN is, right? That Project CERN that found what's quote the God particle years ago. And if you look at their symbol, it looks like a 666. They have a statue of a goddess Shiva. That's a chaotic goddess of the universe, right? A lot of hidden things there with science, and feels like science and magic, you know? And I tie that to Aleister Crowley, which again will be another thing we'll talk about. Like again, a lot of material, everybody. We have so much things. I know we're kind of go off the case a little bit, but I wanted to at least bring those two things up that I found fascinating. And talk of the circle mall. I think a lot of people do know about the Miami incident, except you, shockingly. But this one regarding the whistleblower in revolving Lockheed Martin came out today, and I really wanted to get out there and have people watch Redacted, look for John Stewart Redacted. Interesting stuff, but definitely checked it out. So, all right, man. Now we're gonna shift gears to something more light. I know that was kind of a dark start, maybe not dark, more deeper start. To St. Patrick, man. So, or St. Patrick, Saint of Ireland, all this fun stuff, and
Which
just talk about him a bit.
by the
Yeah.
way, he is not Irish. That I do know for
Yep.
a fact.
Yep.
He is actually Roman Britain or Britain Roman, one or the other, however you want to state it. It's when Rome is one was Brit. I'm not too keen on history, but Rome, when it was going and expanding, Britain was one of those places it expanded into, and
Yep.
that's where his family reside was Britain, Rome, and that's where he grew up. He was actually supposedly from a wealthier family,
Yeah.
possibly even owned. They possibly even owned slaves themselves. You know, and
It could have been Britain's, themselves. You're right. Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's just it's interesting to look at where he came from originally. It was, non-Irish, but
Hmm.
I'm sure you know more or less how he ended up getting to Ireland, don't you?
Yep, I do. I'll start with that. I'll continue a little bit more in depth, a little bit more in depth about Patrick before before he became who he became. So he was originally born in England, like you said. He was born in Britain around 385 AD. His father, I would safely say, he was also a cradle Catholic, right?
Correct.
Because he
Yeah.
was born into it.
Yeah.
His father was a deacon from a Roman family in high society. Patrick, he did come from wealth, like you said earlier, and he pretty much lived very pretty comfortable life. He was raised Catholic, but he wasn't very committed to it. Again, going back to that cradle Catholic mind thinking. Hey, I was born of this and baptized, blah blah blah. And he was so rich, right, that he wasn't committed to his faith, and he lacked education, not because they couldn't afford it. He just didn't care.
Yep.
you know, he's like he's like, I'm a trust fund baby.
Yeah. He's
And
one of those kids who would have went to a 4-year university, just would have ride the whole time in a frat house.
you know what? I would call him the first Batman, but
But he didn't lose
but
his
without,
parents.
he didn't lose his parents, but he had a tragic story, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm the hero that they need, not that they deserve. But um, but what happened is he became a slave at 16 years old. He was kidnapped by Irish pirates. Didn't know Irish pirates existed. You watch. I took my history from watching Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean. I guess there was pirates all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
How would
part
you
two they have.
imagine? How would you imagine they would have asked him to come on the boat?
Oh, hey, I got some Lucky Charms. I got some Lucky Charms here. They're magic and delicious with the leprechauns, the pots of gold. You know, I I got some Irish whiskey.
I heard they were pretty hardcore though. The Irish pirates. I heard they were very
Oh yeah,
intimidating.
yeah.
Very
Oh
intimidating.
yeah. They're
You know.
fighters too, man.
Oh, yeah.
They fought with William Wallace against the Brits, man. They're tough.
Oh yeah.
Um, so he was captured at 6 years old. He was sold to slavery. And basically what his job entailed a lot was managing pigs and sheep. Again, sounds Catholic with us, farms. Um, and from his masters, who was also from a master who was a high priest in Druidism and paganism. And I'll talk a little more about that later on,
Yeah.
but want to put that out. And Druidism and paganism was a very big belief during the time in Ireland. So there was Christians in Ireland, but a very small sect, right? Very small sect of Christians.
Yeah. So they were
So
they were considered a Celtic religion, correct? Is that the right
yes,
pronunciation for it?
Celtic, yeah, Celtic religion, and we'll dive more to that because I found something interesting with that. Maybe not interesting, um, I don't want to say disappointing, but it'll make sense when I talk more about that. And during his time of slavery, here's the thing about Patrick. He didn't do this whole woe is me for a kid at that age as a teenager who could have just been down on his luck and just depressed and all this stuff. He actually clung to his faith. He actually was optimistic that he was going to get back home, and he clung to it. And no matter how bad the situation was, he looked at it as a way to get closer to Christ every time, which I thought, what a like you talked about test earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, that could be a test. There's examples of tests in the Bible, like Job, and
Yeah.
the wager him and the devil had. But he chose God every time. He cleaned closer to faith, right? He took his cradled Catholicism and he made it to a relationship. He didn't take his like, I'm gonna use my religion to save me. He says, I'm gonna develop a relationship with God. I want to note that for people.
Yeah.
Because I know we talk about Catholicism a lot and everything. I love the Catholic faith. but again, it's more about the relationship with God piece, right?
Yeah.
And and then there during that time when he was using that and praying to God and getting closer, about around 408 408 AD, 6 years in slavery, right? He had a dream that he was going to escape back to Britain, by which was given to a voice from him, an unknown voice, a voice in his dream. Could be God, could be an angel, could be an angel of God, could have been Jesus. Who knows? It was a voice saying, "You're going to get back. You're like basically, hey, you're going to be granted the opportunity to get back." Eventually, he then escaped short time after, to the coast and managed to convince some sailors. Again, I don't know if those Irish sailors or whoever what trade sailors they were. Don't know. They didn't go into that too much.
Yeah, the
And
sailor. I hold on real quick. I think I
mhm.
so um so the sailors were ported there, but I forgot. Trying to remember the sailors he went with. They were. You know what? We'll have to go back to that because I'm not exactly sure because it's hard to remember because I get confused because of the Irish pirates taking him and then him going back on a boat with a couple sailors. But I don't think they were Irish though. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think they were either. I don't. Yeah, I'm feeling that. But he finally convinced the sailors to go out with to go with him, and 28 days later, basically about a month later, he was reunited with his family. And then of course, being back after being captured, that captive for so long, he pretty much vowed saying, "I ain't never go back to Ireland."
Well,
He's like,
actually,
he,
did you not to stop you real quick, but
yeah,
there is a part where he's with those sailors though. Okay, these
hmm
sailors, I do know one thing about the sailors. They were, of course, they were Celtic belief religion as well. So they
okay,
might have been very much Irish. Maybe they
hmm
felt pity on him. But anyways, they ended up I think it was like they ended up I don't know if they crashed or after 3 days they hit land.
hmm
And they were stranded for a little bit. And
Oh wow, okay,
there was no food in sight. And they knew Patrick was a believer of Christianity. And by the time that they were all starving, they looked at Patrick and said, why don't you pray to your Christian God,
right,
for food? And, you know, basically he told him, I think he said to him, like, well, if you guys all agree to convert to, to believe that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, I'll pray for food. And sure enough, they ended up agreeing to the terms, right? Or to this because
the ultimatum,
they were faced with starvation, right?
the typical Catholic ultimatum.
Yeah. So he ended up
Yeah,
praying after they agreed. They ended up praying to Christ, and out of the distance there came a herd of swine that they were able to slaughter and eat. So right there was one of his first miracles he actually performed in front of his
wow,
captures. Yeah. And they
wow,
all ended up being converted to Christianity because of it.
wow,
Yeah. And
wow.
a lot of his stories with, and we'll talk more through it, of his believers converting is a lot of stuff like this. Very powerful use of God's power. And we'll talk
Hmm.
more though, but that was one of them.
Okay.
That was one of them right there, you
Oh,
know.
that's good, man. Thanks for sharing that. Did not did not know that. That's freaking cool. That's freaking cool. Okay. So oops, after being captured, sorry, I had a hiccup there. But after being captured, he basically said, "I'm not going to go back to Ireland," right? He's like, "Our after getting back returned, I'm
Yeah.
not going back to Ireland." He's like, "Why am I going to have mercy or love for these people who pretty much treated me like garbage, right?" And I thought that was interesting too. It's like after him being so optimistic, he returned back with a sour taste, which, hey, that's normal for anybody, right? It's like, why the hell do I want to go back to a place where I just didn't have the best visit in my life? I, uh,
It's like a man going back to a woman that beats him, like
yeah,
he's like, but I love
and
her.
it,
No.
yeah, I know, right? But eventually, somehow his heart would eventually change. His heart, and
Yeah.
I go back and I think about how in the Bible, the New Testament, how the like praying. I don't know if it was Paul saying, I have pray God give me a heart of like take my heart of stone and make it into a heart of flesh, and that's something I kind of resonated with it too.
Yeah.
It's not changing who you are as a person, but it's changing. It's like a shot of grace and mercy and love. It's like, hey, I gave you grace, mercy, and love, on the cross, right? These
Yeah.
people, these are my people too. So he did. So eventually, he would later raise money on his own, and he head back to Ireland and preach the gospel as well as advocated the human rights of slaves. So he
Yeah.
didn't free, and I want to point that out. He advocated. He didn't free slaves. There was still slavery at the time happening quite a bit, but he was at least trying to treat them better, please.
Yeah. Yeah. So the
So.
interesting part, though, with part of the reason he even got the notion to go back is he
Mm,
had a dream. I don't know if he had more
mm,
than one dream, but he had a dream. He obviously he showed signs early on of being a man of God, because he started having the similar symptoms that a lot of them would experience was they would have dreams and they would prophesize, right? So one of the dreams
right.
he ended up having was a dream about um, people from Ireland writing letters to him,
Hmm.
and
Wow.
a voice of Ireland who named himself Victor, and there's another name for him, a more uh, almost Roman sounding name of Victor. I can't.
Hmm.
I don't want to ruin it by trying to say the name, but it is like Victor's the first part of it. But was an angel that was presented to him, who was bringing him these letters of Ireland of the people asking him to return,
Hmm.
asking for his help. Um,
Hmm.
Now, and he would imagine the reading these letters in this dream and what the people's voices sounded like, begging for him to come back and to begging for the conversion of themselves into Christianity. Now, regardless of whether these letters were, they never were proven to be a real thing, but it was what was appeared to him in his dream. So almost like the cries of people is what I would kind of symbolize it as. He heard the cries of God's people, and many times, like even in Christianity, when Jesus went forth, it wasn't just the Jewish, the Israelites Jesus was preaching to. He ended up going to the Gentiles, right? So during
Oh
St.
yeah,
Patrick's,
the woman at the well, the one that
the
touched his
The
cloak. Yeah.
Samaritan, yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
people that would not be considered God's people, ended up becoming God's people because God chose them to become their his people.
Right.
So very much like St. Patrick, was visited by one of God's angels because God has obviously chosen Ireland
Right.
as as another set of chosen people, God's sons and daughters. So you
Right.
know through that and unless had this privileged Catholic boy gone and got kidnapped and got introduced to slavery within a Celtic religious pagan believed society, which was at the time was considered the ends of the earth. You know,
Hmm.
Nobody ever has gone to Ireland to even try and take it over at this time.
Right.
He got introduced to a whole set of people that needed God. He found his faith coming back.
Yeah.
He didn't want to go back, but because of this dream, because of God calling him, and he did God's, in will, and that's what kind of drove him back. And I didn't know about he raised money on his own. That was interesting. So he
Yeah.
actually,
It's funny. Yeah, and he raised money his own. Now, yeah, exactly. And I know it's like it's like, well, he came from a family of wealth and everything, but you know what? It could have been where I know this for sure. His family and friends were like, you're crazy. They thought he was nuts, like you're stupid.
oh
And
yeah,
he probably got cut off from the wealth. He'd be like, dude, we're not supporting your death sentence. No,
yeah,
no, you're on your own. And that's that's understandable. You think of Peter telling Christ, I'm not gonna allow you to get killed, right? I'm
hmm
not gonna allow you to take this risk, but it's like it's necessary, it's necessary for the greater good. And and God having mercy on getting him back, because honestly, God could have come and saying, oh, now you need my help. You're a slave now. You weren't really to the faith, but now you need me. And I think it's God's way of saying, hey man, it's your turn.
yeah. It
It's
was
your turn.
like a
Well, your
wake up
spirit,
call. Yeah, right.
yeah, yeah. You know what? if it's like a sales pitch. It's like, listen, did you have a great experience today doing business with me and all stuff? The best compliment is to refer your family and friends to me. You know, and I kind of think of that way, being the business that I am.
Hmm.
Like it's your turn. It's your turn to share this relationship that you have with me to the people who are so lost,
Yeah.
right? Who
Yeah.
are so this and so that and you know what? I think God really looks at the heart, because even though it can be misguided with these different religions, it again, and as Christians and Catholics, we still do that, where we still create our own little religion at times about things. When again, it's like God's like, no, man, it's about relationship with me, right? And even though it's paganism, people are truly trying to do good, you know, and God's like, I'll show you, you know, and I'm going to use a tool and talk about a testimony. It's like, wow, this slave came back, right? What the heck is he doing here? Why did he come back? Why did he ever come back, right?
Yeah.
That's such a
It's
testament, right?
well, it's really he ended up being allowed to go back too through the faith, to be a person to set out and basically, um I I'm trying to remember the name for it. It's not missionary work, but it's to convert people in Ireland, because no one's ever thought they've tried. I think they tried one person before him with very little success sending out to Ireland
Mm-hmm.
for Christianity. And let's face the
Mm-hmm.
facts, him going back, he was putting his head on a chopping block.
And
These
he's got clout,
individuals,
and he's got clout with these
yeah,
people.
these individuals would have looked at him obviously with a sense of like, you're trying to change our religion that's been around for God knows how long,
Right.
and with Christian based religion, which has a God that we don't even understand. Like, it to them, it was oblivious. It didn't make any sense because they're so used to physical attributes of a God, whether it's the sun, whether it's the water, whether it's the green on the ground. I mean, they
Yeah.
were a
That
religion
will.
based off
Yeah.
God and goddesses, like just much like Egyptian culture, right?
You
Um,
know you know in the head. There was it was very polytheistic, as they say, or polytheistic.
yeah,
It was multiple gods, up to 20 in Ireland, maybe even more. And I'll dive into that too.
yeah. But one thing I
So
wanted to
yeah,
say
God.
real quick, when he did come back, and I thought maybe you thought this was interesting because you're a financial person. He
Mm-hmm.
he went. I think one of the first stops he made was, guess, no other than his slave master, and he
Mm-hmm.
paid off his freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So he went back to the man who actually had him as a slave, and he paid back his first freedom first.
Hmm.
Isn't that a trip? I mean,
Dude, that's amazing. That opens a door of like,
really, right?
why?
Why?
It's not like you're walking there saying, I'm here to preach about Jesus. It's like that opens it. That's a jaw
Well,
dropper.
I think him being there because he learned the inner outs of Ireland. Being as low as he was basically like, he knew the slums, right? He knew the slums.
Oh,
He knew how things worked there. He knew the deals
yeah,
that had to be made in order for things to go through. And obviously, there is a huge transition of debts to be paid, obviously, in like most cultures. But he
right,
knew how important it was, probably in a certain matter of even religion for them, to pay
right,
off his freedom, right? There had to have been something he knew that captivated people's interest. He basically, what he did is he didn't just come back with Christianity. He came back at their level to explain Christianity than the way they would
hmm
understand. And that was one of
hmm
the first steps, was paying for his freedom. That was a way for his slave master to understand. Now, whether his slave master became converted after that, I'm not 100% sure. But imagine how much volumes that spoke to that individual who had this foreigner that he had as a slave, who believed in a God completely different than him, escape
hmm
and come back and pay off his debt that
that's
he never
test
had to pay off in
testimony,
the
man.
first place.
Yeah, a testimony. It's incredible, incredible.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to put a pin on that regarding his ministry and what he did and his miracles. We'll talk a bit. Uh, we'll see if it's briefly or not, and depends on your insight on the paganism in Ireland, right? So I did do a lot of study and notes the best way I can with the time I had. And so basically, the notes I got here is Celtic paganism is derived from Indo-European paganism. So basically, interesting, there has not been a real origin of this belief and possibly have been influences of Greek Roman gods that could have been changed over the years. The thing for certain the thing for certain is that they believe in multiple deities, like we talk about,
Yeah.
So there wasn't there's a lot of hand-me-down beliefs and so forth with this pagan realism. Again, it could like I look at Romans and Greeks and the Egyptians. They shared very similarly, right? They similarly um like multiple deities, right? You talked about the physical elements. The Celtics held ceremonies um in sacred groves, natural shrines, and let's see here. Let's see, natural shrines. Let's see, temples and ritual enclosures. Sacrifices were mostly animals, both livestock or work of livestock or working livestock, working stock,
Hmm.
and possibly, but it's not too many human sacrifices. And I'll kind of dive into that a little bit more
So there
too, because I
wasn't
think
there
there's
wasn't
more
human sacrifices amongst them as much.
as much. And I think like overall, here's what the next point I was going to make. Overall, the paganism religion was varied from tribe to tribe, but
Yeah.
considered in but consisted in physical sacrifices and the belief in multiple deities. So there was, like you think about Native American tribes, right?
Yeah.
Here, they're Native Americans, but they all had different beliefs about things. They're not all the same, right? But they're similar, but not all the same. And you going back how Ireland was at like kind of the ends of the earth, right? There was so many multiple tribes. They believed in multiple their consistencies. They believed in multiple deities, believed in physical things. They did physical sacrifices, but the deities weren't all the same, right?
Hmm.
And so, but one thing was consistent was slavery in Ireland, right? Slavery in Ireland was a very consistent thing. And then what else do I have about that? I don't think I highlighted a few things. Let's see. Yeah, going back, tribal priests having more common with shamans of tribal society. Again, that goes back to the case in point, like with Native Americans. Yeah, again, very tribal. They weren't like a unified Ireland. Yeah, I think. Again, it was just more again tribal.
Well,
Let's see.
I believe there was a lot of like high priest. Um,
There was a lot of high
yeah,
priests.
a
There
lot
was
of
there
high
was high priests
priests,
and druids.
and
Yeah.
there's two versions of Irish like systems. So there was the ones that were more of the warriors, and the ones that were more spiritual based, which were like the high priest. They considered the musicians, people that play instruments on one side. So if I'm correct, one was basically the Druids, correct?
Hmm.
And then the Celtics, which are I could be wrong, but they're both. I think that's like the way they'd split the categories, right? The Celtics, the religious-based Irish people,
Yeah.
and then the Druids, which were more of the kings and army, military-based, and they coincided with each other, right?
Right.
Obviously,
There was a level of hierarchy,
yeah,
you would say,
yeah,
in a
and
way.
the high priest would basically determine whether the way they looked at their deities, their gods, is they'd look at like their gods is like you would look at nature, right? So nature would come in, and if the nature had, they would look at like, you know them being blessed with a crop and flourish with livestock and all that stuff, is like the gods smiling upon them, right? But then on the other hand, they have a harsh weather, rain,
Hmm.
all this stuff, and that's the gods, frowning upon them. So for them, it was like it really kind of was a hit and miss, right? But
Right.
the high priest would determine why it would happen, right? So
Right.
then between figuring out why it would happen and what caused it, I think that's how they determine the sacrifice that would had to been made in order to level out the whatever maybe debt, I guess they would consider in some way, shape, or form, to offer to settle the debt, to offer to the goddess and gods. You get what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. Right.
And then obviously the king that was in power would probably have to be an individual they would put in power uh, that was promised to deliver, you know, a fruitful crop and fruitful cattle and all this, all this stuff like prosperity.
It was
It's
so there
actually
there's so good point. Yeah.
it's really interesting because like if you really look at like what they would believe, right, Christopher,
Right.
is they believe this one individual would solve all the problems. Like human individual. Like if they were in power, they would
Well,
they would. But
yeah.
it's like to me, it's like no different than politics today, right?
Well,
I
and it's
mean,
honestly, it's no different than I would call, and we may get some slack for this, but like prosperity gospel, you know,
mm,
you know what that is, right? Where hey, give me money and God's gonna bless you,
yes,
those type of
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
and which is to me, I hope, side note with this, I hope those who are preaching that, I really hope it's with true intent. I'm not here to judge and say they're not. I really do because, but unfortunately, I don't believe in that prosperity gospel. I believe that it shouldn't be just centered around money. That God's going to bless you with money. Well, that's not what it's about,
you're
right?
talking about that health and wealth type
Yeah,
of mentality. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It's like it's like when the people in the time of Jews and Romans, when they're like, we're gonna have a Messiah that's gonna beat the crap out of Roman. Christ came on saying, I'm not here trying to unslave you from the tyranny of Rome. I'm here to unslave you from the tyranny of sin.
yeah. And
And people miss that
that's
point.
yeah, that's great because that really dives into how they were as a people.
Hmm.
Everything was. You would think everything being Celtic. It's funny you think being Celtic just based off their god and goddesses mentality. Like it almost sounds like, like nature rules all, right? Nature rules all, and
Well, yeah,
gotta
and that makes
bless
sense.
nature
Yeah.
and be peaceful, right? Because nature
Mm,
in reality can be very peaceful, right? You think it'd be peaceful, like, but no, there was even within their tribes, like for anything to get settled before you even came as a guest, you had to bring something. Like you
yep.
had to bring livestock. It wasn't peaceful. It was a give and take society.
You mean transactional?
Transactional. My bad. There you go.
No, no,
Transactional.
no, no, no. It's very transactional. That's a lot with a lot of cultures too, and even
Yeah,
to this
I mean,
day.
you can even say we're very much a transactional culture, unfortunately. But in
Hmm.
Christianity, that's why him coming in to these Celtics and these pagan society. Christianity doesn't require a transactional setup. You know what I mean?
Right,
There
right,
really is no but unfortunately, I feel like he had to serve at them at that level for them to even listen to him in the beginning.
right,
You know,
right.
but
And you know what? You know what? Can I bring a point where you talk about how he paid off his own slavery? That
yeah,
that 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 could have been his doorway of like, I'm here and I'm bringing the transaction. I'm bringing this to you.
yeah,
And you're right. And there, actually, we're going to more of that. That when Patrick got back to Ireland, like I said, he wasn't educated, but doesn't mean he was stupid. He was very very street smart because of his time as a slave. He knew a lot of the inner circles,
yeah,
and he was very well spoken, which was interesting, and and like I think like and I know people are gonna bring this up. Like we look at Catholic religions, like example, the Christmas time, right, which is actually taken from a Greek religion. It's like like this day actually came from this. This is what Catholics do this because they were this. What the Catholics were doing at that time, or Christianity was doing at the time, was trying to like saying, "Hey, let me here. I'm gonna use what you've been believing and connect it to you with God in a way. It's like I'm gonna here. You know what I'm saying? It's like
huh?
when
Yeah,
it's like I'm gonna take what you believe and let's turn the focus into this. It's like I'm trying to connect to your level, but in a way where it's like this is the understanding of who God is. And I think it was a way for people to because it's hard to a change of heart is the miracle from God. The mind
Yeah.
itself, a mind itself, and I can speak this being an OCD fanatic, it's hard to change certain habits. So what I try to do is like, okay, things I used to do doing this, I still need to do this, but how can I do it in ways that are healthy and good to me? And I think that was the thing we came across a lot of these religions, right? A lot of these things that believe in multiple deities. Well, let's put you with, let's compare this what you believe to what God really is and how those two connect. Let's change that, right? Let's saying stop it, but let's change the focus here, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's why I think honestly I think that's one of the things why a lot of traditions of Catholics have that. A lot of these traditions that are derived from pieces of different cultures that during the time of the gospel spreading.
Yeah.
Um, but anyways, kind of going off tangent here. I'll kind of get you see your thoughts. So talk about Patrick and his miracles, and he, when he got there, let's talk about that. So what miracles do you got? Because I guess the miracles, but what miracles you want to start with?
Okay, so obviously there's ones that are real, and there's ones that are supposedly just kind of myth, right? Obviously we
Mm-hmm.
can touch on the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I tried to do a little more research on the snakes aspect, right? There was a talk, and it was written by another individual who I think was from Ireland. Later on, after uh, Patrick's conversion to of the pagan belief, there, I want to say it was like couple hundred years afterwards, but that he when he touched his staff to the ground, it turned the soil to create a component that repelled all the serpents, all the snakes from the island.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's really no truth on that, but it is
That
it
that's
is
a good that's a
again
good theory. Yeah.
symbolically though I like it because symbolically to me it's exclaiming he removed the serpent from the land. He removed paganism from the land at
Oh,
that moment,
absolutely.
right?
Like the
You
symbols
know,
of yeah, paganism and demons,
yeah,
you would
and
say.
obviously snake being tied into the serpents of the Garden of Eden.
The
I mean,
the
it makes sense
symbolic, yeah,
why we choose the snake, right? That makes sense.
yeah,
That makes perfect sense.
yep.
So whether it's true or not, it's a great representation of what he was doing while he was there. Um, and then also too, there is this one isn't a miracle as much as it's a common belief that he did this, and I'm not sure, but he about the clover, the 3-leaf clover,
Mm-hmm.
and using it as a way to tie into the Trinity. He never stated, I think, that he did that, but it was said that he did, and if he did do it, the main reason why he would use the clover in Ireland is because of how the Celtics were so tied in with vegetation, right?
Right, and
He used
it's going back to saying, okay, you guys are tied to the physically. Let's let me show you. Let me make it to a symbol, not a belief.
Yeah, let's use a
Yeah.
physical attribute of what you so crave to latch yourself to, and we're going to
Mm-hmm.
turn this into what I want to show you in my God, right? The
Mm-hmm.
Holy Trinity, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, whether it's true or not, the thing I like about it is you're using a simple image to correlate with the Christian image, all right, the cross,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Holy Trinity. Because you look at the cross, we do the sign of the cross. That's a Holy Trinity right there.
Mm-hmm.
The 3-leaf clover, Holy Trinity right there. Yes, they're 3 individual leaves on one stem. They're not 3 leaves actually tied together, which some people try to fight like well, it doesn't really, tie in with the Trinity 3 and 1. It's
Well,
like, well, I'm not,
yeah.
I don't, if he did do it, I don't think he was looking at like the scientific part of the way the leaves are
Yeah, he wasn't
constructed.
like he wasn't like he wasn't. That's the funny thing. He wasn't trying to say this is why this is existence because of this. No, I think it's a beautiful way to compliment God's art and to turn to
Exactly,
something.
exactly.
Yeah,
And as
it's
as a
not that's not
person,
the sole purpose of being a
yeah,
Trinity.
and as
It's
a
you know
person who was a child
yeah.
watching these movies, I always liked that he did that with the 3-leaf clover. I
Mhm.
always loved it. I mean, and it helped me understand it. If and that's the one thing is if you can explain a complicated subject to a 3-year-old to understand,
Yeah.
that's exactly what Jesus would have done.
Yeah,
That was what
and guess
Jesus.
what? And you know what? It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be everywhere in that
Yeah,
language. when you
Yeah.
shared that, like, wow, there's a lot of trinities growing today. You
Yeah.
know, you know.
Um,
So, anyways,
the
good.
so we have okay, so we have one. Okay, there's this. I can go in a line of every single miracle he performed, but I want to really talk about this one. I think is interesting. I'll talk about one first about rising from the dead. Okay, so
Okay.
there's a book out there called Saints who I think it's Saints. What was it? Saints who brought the dead back to life, or Saints who raised the dead. Okay,
Okay.
um, you
Sounds
know,
like a band.
yeah, it sounds like a great band. I mean, I'd totally
Yeah.
do that if I could play guitar or something. I mean, I'd totally make a band. Saints who raised the dead, Saints from the dead. No, I'm just kidding.
Hmm.
Um, anyways, so he was one of the saints noticed he had many miracles, and I think he had recorded over 1,000 miracles or something like that. But so in his he's one of the very few saints who actually wrote a something about his life, almost like a about him. A confession
Hmm.
is actually what he called it. Uh, and he was reported to have raised approximately 33 individuals from the dead. Some who have been
I
dead for
read about
years.
that too. Yep,
Yeah,
I read
some
about
some
that.
some who have been dead for years. Uh,
Okay, you got to elaborate about that. I've heard raising the dead when they just died.
yeah, so
What the
there's
heck?
well, there's not a whole the part that's very difficult is
Yeah.
in Ireland at the time, written documentation wasn't very popular. Everything was passed down through memory.
Hmm.
So it was in the minds of the Irish more than it was actually written on paper. So it wasn't like there was no people out there like like Matthew was with Jesus or some of the disciples writing down every single thing Jesus was doing and saying. So
Like an actual record.
yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. You have to kind of take it for what it is, the written
Okay.
documentation and some of the recordings that he had himself that he wrote down. But one of the cases where he went to a certain city, uh, and there was an old lady who would travel very far to go fetch water. Um, and she asked him, knowing who he was, if he could find a simpler way for her to gather water. And right then and there, St. Patrick, uh, basically hit his staff to the ground, and a spring of water popped up. Okay.
Hmm.
Right then and there, he performed a miracle in front of her where she could gather water. Now, that being said, he went to this was the village. I want to say this was the village of Dublina, Dublin. Have you
Dublin.
probably heard that name? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and he was so the king in that time near the area had heard of St. Patrick being there. And what had happened with the king is a couple days or that day he lost his son, and and then not only that, but the same day he lost his son, he lost his daughter as well. When she was cleaning herself in a local, like a nearby spring, she drowned.
Hmm. Hmm.
He lost two of his kids in one day. I can't even imagine. And just he was devastated. And he heard of St. Patrick being nearby, and he obviously called for someone to fetch St. Patrick because they heard of his miracles that he's performed.
Right.
And St. Patrick obviously went to the king, and the king asked him, Can you please bring my children back to life?" And St.
Mhm.
Patrick said, "I will bring your children back to life if you claim for Jesus to be your Lord and Savior." So
Him and his
obviously,
ultimatums, man.
yeah,
Him and his
obviously the guy,
ultimatums.
obviously the guy's sitting there going like, "Yeah, he's going to say yes, right? I mean, obviously he's
Yeah.
going to say yes." So
Right.
he says yes, and sure enough, St. Patrick brings his daughter and son back to life, and and then not only that, but he went and actually baptized the king after that had happened,
Hmm.
Christopher.
Wow.
And guess
Wow.
what? The spring of water he emerged from the ground. Uh,
That's insane.
and
Yeah.
because of that, the king ended up naming that town, that little city, Dublina, after his daughter, Dublin. Dublin. Um, okay, that being said, that's one record. Now
That's
here's a
pretty
funny
cool.
one.
That's a
Yeah,
really cool.
here
Yeah, yeah.
here's a funny one. So there was an evil man named hold on, let's see. Okay, there's an evil man named McCaldus. All right,
Macaulay
and his
Culkin.
McCaldus. That's such an Irish name.
Yeah.
McCaldus. I don't know if I can say it right. And his companions, who placed their heads in certain diabolical signs called debray.
Okay.
I gotta look that up, signifying their devotion to Satan. All right, so obviously
Oh,
paganism doesn't believe in Satan, right? They've obviously done some research. These guys did not like St. Patrick that much. Where they probably did a little bit of research to know what would be the opposing side to Christianity, right?
right, right. They're like
That's what. Yeah,
they're hurting our pockets, man. They're hurting our
yeah,
what's going on? Yeah,
yeah. So they
we
plotted to
gotta find
mock.
some kryptonite.
Yeah, this is really funny, and it's funny and it's not funny, but it's funny. They plotted to mock St. Patrick. They covered one of their group, Garbanus was the name, with a cloak as if he were dead. So you kind of get what they're going to do, right? They're going to
Mm-hmm.
fake a resurrection. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to basically try to disprove St. Patrick being able to raise somebody from the dead, or say that's all it's
Just a
all
mock.
elaborated.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
to mock him, or
So
like he's a Charlotte, in a way.
yes.
Yeah.
So it says Gerbanus, though in perfect health, was placed on a couch as if laid out in preparation for burial. The men then sent for Patrick, asking him to raise the covered Gerbanus from the dead. And it says this was a fatal mistake. St. Patrick
Literally.
told them, yeah, it was with deceit, but not with falsehood. Okay, so he
Oh
said
my.
this was with deceit, but not with falsehood, that they had declared the companion dead. So you hear
Oh
what he
my
said?
God.
Disregarding their entries, Patrick went on his way praying for the soul of the deer. I can't pronounce it. Anyways, so
The
they go
dearly
back.
departed God.
They
Oh,
they
it's
go
hilarious.
back to get Garbanus, but guess what? The guy who was cloaked pretending to be dead actually
Mhm.
ends up being dead.
Dude, wow.
Yeah. So it gets even more interesting. They said Nagademus they uncovering the friend, they went back to St. Patrick and they repented. Basically, they were all converted after that. Um, and then because of the conversion, he actually brought Gerbanus back to life. Okay, the guy who was dead.
Mm.
So what was meant to be a trick, he actually brought back to life. And the evil one who ran this whole charade, McCaldus, became
Mhm.
a great penitent, a bishop eminent in holiness and miracles, and became known as Saint McCaldus.
Dude, talk about a joke backfire.
Right?
Oh
Like
man,
when I first
that's
heard the story,
awesome.
and I already knew where it was going. I already knew it was going. I was like, watch, this is gonna be like. But see, isn't it awesome that even though they went to mock him,
Mhm.
they got to see the power of God, but yet the forgiveness of God at the same time. See,
Well, you know what? Can I add to that? I
yeah,
to me, I think the humor of God,
yeah. There's
dude,
humor
that's
in that.
hilarious.
But
There's like,
it's
dude,
funny. It's funny from a
yeah,
person who's not experiencing it,
that's true.
but it's but in the situation, it wasn't funny. So the thing, a great one of the things I learned, a great gift you can have from, like, so there's like 7 gifts, right? There's 7 gifts from the Holy Spirit you can have,
Right.
in our belief, and one of them actually, believe it or not, is fear of the Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, fear of the Lord. So fear of the Lord meaning, like, look, you can't test God in those kinds of ways. He'll set you straight. He will set
Oh
you
yeah.
straight. And in this case, he set them straight. And they were actually given a gift, Christopher. Think about it. They were given a gift of fear,
A healthy fear.
a healthy fear of God. And not only were they given that fear, but they were given another gift, in its own way and shape and form, is the grace, the forgiveness and the freedom. So it was cool that
Yeah.
St. Patrick got to be a part of this. But what's even cooler about it is St. Patrick knowing it was a deceit, but claiming that that the deceit that they meant to deploy upon him was a fatal mistake on their part. You
Right.
know?
And you know what? Can I share this too? A side note. When I was just thinking about this,
Yeah.
if God wanted to demonstrate His power, He could, but it will be it's like how many times do you hear that God is more of being a God of fear than a God of love, right? And God
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like to demonstrate His power. He's like, I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to have a relationship with you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but at times it's like, all right, you want to test my fear? You want to test the fear? All right, here you go. You don't
Yeah.
want that. It's like grandma. It's like grandma, our grandmother who passed away. She was all love, but man, when if she got upset, it was pretty serious
It was.
because
It
she
was very
really not.
serious.
She would never get upset. And when she got
Yeah.
upset, you're like, oh, and there's a fear, but there's a healthy fear.
Yeah.
It's because we know her as love, not a very angry person. So something ticked her off. We don't want to
Yeah.
do that again because I like the loving grandma than the fearful, pissed off grandma. But those are rare things, and I kind of look at God being that.
Yeah.
He's a just God.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, and it makes you think like, okay, why is St. Patrick able to, if these are true, and
Mm-hmm.
I believe a lot of these are very, very much true, because the way it's recorded in his description, right? The stories are just so uh, well, like done, right? And well
Right.
represented and very random, but not random in a way of like just like nonsense, but random in a way of like, it's just like him walking down the street and coming across somebody type of random, right?
Yeah.
It's familiar. But the thing is
Right.
like a question I kept asking myself: if these things are true, why would God choose to perform so many miracles in such an isolated place? Okay,
That's a
because
good point. That's a
you
good
don't
point.
hear a lot of these in a lot of areas, right? Like miracles that we would usually hear about or like mysterious things happening are very seldom. They're rare
Right.
and they happen
Right.
occasionally here and there through periods of time in history. But it seems like with St. Patrick's lifespan, it was quite a casual thing for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my thought behind it is the one thought I got behind that was okay, God had to make it clear to a bunch of individuals who were basically on the far outskirts of what they called the ends of the earth, who
Mm-hmm.
never once got an approach of Christianity or even knew what was going on in the internal world.
Well, it
They
was
were
that was our world.
untouched.
That was our world. That
Yeah.
was our world. Yeah.
And the only thing they knew was of their pagan beliefs. And
Right.
within their pagan beliefs, the only thing they knew was not based off of word, but based off of physical seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it was enough for them to believe just, what they saw in nature, to believe in these god and goddesses
Right.
without having truth behind it. But
Right.
for them just to have a man coming out spreading the truth in what he says, they're not going to respond through word. They're going to respond through physical things going on.
Right.
I think that was really the only way he could have actually approached him with any success. And God chose a certain individuals for that. Now,
Right.
I think had he gone there without just spreading the word, or with just
Yeah.
spreading the word without any like other things, I think he would have had success amongst certain individuals, but I don't think he would have had as much success amongst the kings and princesses and princes.
Right.
Okay, because he
Exactly.
actually ended up converting a lot of uh like princesses of these tribes
Right.
into virgin nuns.
Yeah.
It,
And you know what? And you know what? He also unified the tribes.
Yeah, exactly. He did. Yeah,
He unified the tribes.
and it's cool you bring that up because before he would go to another tribe after uh, converting one and spreading the good word of God to them, he would actually um, retrieve favor from the tribe that he just worked with by acquiring gold and and sometimes livestock, bringing to the next tribe because again, you couldn't come to another tribe as a
Without
guest
bringing
without
something. Yeah. You.
yes
I'll give him something. Yeah, transactional.
Yep, exactly, transactional. So
Yeah,
he knew what he had to do in order to bring them together in unity in a way as well.
right.
And he did. He created a so actually because of his conversion with these individuals, created a more civilized Ireland that we see today. Now, unfortunately, well, it depends on what kind of person you are, and
Yeah.
so I don't know if you've heard recently, but Ireland is converting much back to a pagan mentality.
I have read about that actually. I've read
Yeah,
some of the notes that it's trying to get back, and that to me just shows more of the times we're in. I think a lot of it's going back and living in a fear-based
I
society.
agree. I agree.
I think there's a lot of dark things behind the scenes in a global aspect. I look at that like from the World Economic Forum. I look at I hate to say this, the influence of America. And as much as I'm
Oh
a fan of
yeah,
our Constitution, I'm a fan. And here's what I tell people: I am a fan of the Constitution. I'm not a fan of the government.
yeah. Well, so you're dead on right about that. So us America, we have such a we have a responsibility. We don't realize it,
Right, right.
but we as well are slowly but surely turning back into a paganistic mindset. I don't know if paganistic is a word, but a pagan mindset
Hmm.
uh, of taking what we once hold dearly to our heart, which was our God faith based nation,
Hmm.
and transitioning back into a mythological god and goddesses. But the sad part with us is honestly, Christopher, we're turning it into as if we're all god and goddesses. It's kind of sick. Like we haven't even
Well,
we're not even converting back to a
well,
mindset of like Celtic or Greek mythology type of like stuff.
well.
We're
It's the same fruit. It's the same fruit, different lie.
yeah, and we are turning into a society of we all are the utmost powerful beings of our own universes. But it's sad, Christopher, because really what's going on is if I truly were to believe I'm the most powerful person in my life, right?
Yeah,
Like a god. Like let's say I thought I was a god. Well, one thing
yeah.
I can say from experience, Christopher, is if I was a god, I'd feel bad for anybody who believed in me,
Hmm.
because I'd be the worst god ever.
Hmm.
I can't even manage my own life.
Oh, we be gods of
It's
failure.
self
We'll be gods of
destruction.
failure. Yeah,
Yeah, it's self
we be
destruction at its finest.
we be gods of failure. And you know what I tell people is like, you know what? And this is something I try to tell myself. I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here to progress. And honestly, I don't want to be perfect. I don't want that responsibility.
Yeah, yeah,
I
and
don't want that.
it's just so like I'll even tie back to what our conversation earlier with the whole alien thing, right?
Right.
The reason I don't partake in it, whether it's true or not, like hardcore, like fantasizing about extraterrestrial beings or any way, shape, or form, is because regardless of what might be true amongst us in this life physically, I
Yeah.
will forever believe in God Himself and what He's done, because I have more faith in an internal world that God has presented peace in with me than I
Yeah.
would of an external world of physical things always being shown to me. And I think that's too is like when St. Patrick came and he did all those physical representations of what happened.
Hmm.
Ireland stood strong afterwards, Christopher, as a
Hmm.
strong Christian based nation, country.
Yeah.
Without all those miracles having to happen anymore, you know?
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it's actually it's a beautiful thing, right? And that's I think that's what God really calls most people to have, is just a personal relationship without having to prove that He is the all powerful God at all times.
Yeah.
Besides, I don't want
Yeah.
Him to prove that to me at all times, like physically, because look what He can do. It's, you know
Yeah.
the Bible, regardless of whether people believe it or not, is actually a historical book in itself if you were to really trace some of its origins back. And
Well,
let's just
yeah.
say he's made it a point that he's the an almighty, powerful God, right? So
Right. Well, yeah. Well, the thing is that it reminds me of when Moses asked God to show him His glory, right? And of course, anybody alive in the presence of God would die, right? Their body couldn't take it.
yes,
It'd be, yeah,
yes,
And one of the things I like, what was saying, and I'm paraphrasing quite a bit, is where God told him to turn around or whatever, and he came through all this power of storm and wind and whatever is going on, and the last part was when God came as a whisper.
yeah,
And I thought that was beautiful. I thought that was beautiful. And people try to look for all these big miracles. I mean, that's great. That just shows the power of God. But people understand that the true miracle is the power of the heart changing.
yeah.
The heart changing to again going back to the heart, from the heart of stone to the heart of flesh. That is a miracle. That to me is worth more than raising from the dead. That to me is worth more than, because that's a tone for the next stages of life to because what we do echoes in eternity.
Yeah.
you know and that's proven because we're all going to be held accountable at the end, right, for what we've done.
Well,
and
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 that's a fact.
that's like, even like with this podcast, like for me, like I know what I say. I want to be as justful to God as I possibly can, but also I want to I don't want to be this dull, boring person that doesn't like to entertain certain things. But one
Hmm.
thing I want to get clear to people is like, regardless of what goes on in this world, I think there's a whole nother world we don't see until we're gone, that will do God justice in everything He's done for us in our lives, right? So
Right.
for me, I will always try to point people back to that direction, but also too, whatever people are going through or what they're seeing or those interactions or the paranormal that they may experience through life. I mean, just I want those people to know, like, we've been through it. We know, like,
Yeah.
well, I'm not
Oh
I
yeah.
don't think they're crazy. I don't think they're crazy at all. but
Hmm.
but that they have nothing to fear with that. Does that make sense?
Exactly. No, it does. It makes total sense. And when people bring up the whole science aspect, and I tell people, it's like, you understand, science is a theology belief itself, you know,
Yes. Oh yeah, totally.
and science is always changing. To me, I look at science as like the tribes with different polytheistic beliefs. You know, it's just now we're naming them, even though we understand it doesn't mean we understand everything, because science is always changing with hypothetical tests and all that stuff. Now, when it comes to the spiritual one, people are like, well, you can't have science or spirituality tied together. I'm like, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
It's funny because back in those Celtic beliefs, you can call what they did actually science,
Yeah.
because a lot of their stuff was herb and remedy based. They nobody in their village could they could heal people. Don't get me
Mm.
wrong, they could heal people from sicknesses through herbs and stuff like that. Things that we would understand that would heal us, right?
Oh, well, where do you think our medicine comes from?
Yeah.
Herbs
So
and chemicals. Yeah.
exactly. So that I have a cold, right? And a good, nice lemon tea, right? So
Right.
obviously they probably had that years ago back into a pagan mentality, right? People would have called it magic, but really it was just science. It was citrus based. So the thing was, is they had their remedies just as much as we have our remedies today. But the
Right.
thing they could not do, the one thing they could not do, Christopher, is raise something from the dead.
Yeah.
That was
There's no herb for
impossible.
that. Yeah.
There was
There's
no herb for that. There's
yeah.
only one religion out there that actually has documentation of individuals coming back from the dead, and that is Christianity. Now, there's other religions that mimic it, but
Right.
they were never truly death risen people. Like, they were. It's a subject we'll have to come up to another time, but it was a lot more darker of a situation for them.
Yep.
Uh, but it wasn't actually life coming back into a body. Does that make
Right.
sense? It
Well,
was
and the
it was an
thing,
it was an imitation of it. Let's put it that way.
yeah, it's the same. Because what comes back is not what you think it is.
No, no.
And that's the thing too, is people miss that. And it's just like, these demons, these spiritual entities, they need to go into something. They
Yeah.
always try to, and so, but no, it's good stuff. There's to wrap this up a bit. And gosh, we're at 90 minutes. My goodness, dude, I'm loving it. I'm Mick loving it, my friend. I'm Mick loving it. But some of the other miracles I'll kind of share on the side before we wrap it up is what was it? Baptism. What is it? Oh, here we go. One. This is forgotten miracles of St. Patrick. One of the earliest miracles attributed to St. Patrick occurred around at his baptism when a blind man named Gormus arrived after having a dream that Patrick would cure him. While holding Patrick's hand, he made a sign of the cross on the ground, and suddenly a spring of fresh water. You go back to the water, erupted from the earth. Gormus washed his eyes with the water, and his sight was immediately restored.
Wait,
God,
was this Patrick's baptism as a child,
this
or
this was no, this was at Patrick's baptism, I guess. Yeah, that's what it's saying.
at
Attributed
Patrick, like
to
his actual baptism?
yeah.
That's a trip.
Yeah, let's see. Patrick, let's see, here we go. As a young boy, Patrick was charged with watching the family's flock of sheep. One day, a baby lamb was carried off by a wolf, and he was blamed for the loss. That night, he prayed that the lamb would return, and the following day, the wolf brought back the lamb, and Patrick laid it back at Patrick's feet unharmed.
You sure it
Um,
wasn't a wolf in sheepskin?
it could have been a skinwalker.
I'm joking. I'm
Could have been a
joking.
skinwalker. Could have been a skinwalker.
That's a trip, bro. I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Let's see here. Let's see
You know,
here.
it's the innocence behind that too, like it's like nature bending to God's will itself. A wolf, a predator bringing back its prey that it could have easily got away with. Like
Oh, absolutely.
that's insane.
Oh,
That's crazy.
here's another one. Patrick died on March 17th, 1493, and it is said that there was no darkness in Ireland for 12 days after his death. He's reportedly buried in the graveyard next to Downs Cathedral, located in Downpatrick, Northern Ireland. That's interesting.
Mm.
Wow. Um,
And
yeah,
and
it's
and Ireland's known to be kind of a like a cloudy type of environment, isn't it?
oh
Or
yeah. Like I said, my current coworker, or I'd say manager, I want to keep these private. She's from Ireland, and they would have heavy storms and everything because it's up in that northern part, right?
yeah.
I mean, and so forth. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty fascinating stuff. It's pretty fascinating stuff. But anyways, anything else you want to add, St. Patrick, before we kind of wrap this up, or anything else you want to talk about?
Oh, it's more about St. Patty's Day, but we'll touch on that whenever if we do something on St. Patty's Day.
Well,
It's
oh, St. Patty's Day. Okay, all right.
yeah, it'll just be a real quick shout out to the whole drinking aspect of it. But anyways,
Yeah,
no, I think that's pretty much everything. I mean, obviously he had a whole lot going on. There
yeah,
was a lot of great things. I mean, I would encourage people, listen to what we said and fact checked us. I mean, I hate to use that terminology, but that's the truth. Fact check what we said, and you can
absolutely.
give some clarity on stuff. But read it for yourself. I mean, the best thing I think people could read is the Confessions of St. Patrick,
Yeah.
because it's from his own documentation.
Oh yeah, his
And
confessional. Yeah, I've
yeah.
heard about that. And yeah, good.
And there's one thing I would like to quote from him, if you don't
Hmm.
mind.
Hmm.
This is quoted from St. Patrick in the confession, and it says, "The Lord hath given to me, though humble, the power of working miracles among a barbarous people, such as are not recorded to have been worked by the great apostles, insomuch as in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ I have raised the dead bodies that have been buried for many years. But I beseech you, let no one believe that for these or like works I am to be at all equaled with the apostles, or with any perfect man, since I am humble and a sinner, and worthy only to be despised." End quote. The thing I loved about St. Patrick is he wanted to make it very clear he was a humble man, which means he was at people's level. He was lowly, right?
Yeah.
And humility in that time frame was more like a lowliness, like he was nothing more than just a lowly person.
Hmm.
um, he wanted to make sure people knew who the real power was,
Hmm.
and he was simply just a vessel, which that's a powerful person in itself, to acknowledge where true power comes from. And I think he was a great example. And for a lot of people who want to even conquer fear. I mean, you don't even have to look at it from a religious point, right?
Hmm.
Or a Christian point, right? You know, this is a man who came back and faced his fears
Hmm.
through God. And that's the encouraging thing I think anybody should get from this is, with God at your side, fear can always be conquered.
Right.
And when that happens, there's so much power that comes from that, from God, that you become a beacon of light through that.
Right.
And one thing they said he was also was they called him the Apostle of Ireland.
Yeah.
The Apostle of
Yeah.
Ireland. So, you know, and I think rightfully given so.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I think honestly that's the way we should end that. That's really good, man. Yeah, that's beautiful. And gives us like a whole new meaning for St. Patrick's Day. So any of you out there drinking that green beer, hear this story. You're gonna look at the beer and think more in depth of what you're doing. It's gonna be good.
Mhm.
And being safer when you drink that green beer. You know, I kind of had a stupid joke where it's like, hey, Jesus made water into water to wine. Patrick made beer into green. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, but anyways, hey, everybody, we appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed this first episode from us. My brother and I, we're hopefully maybe to do this a once a week thing. We have an episode each out to you, or every 2 weeks. We don't know. Again, this is still uncharted territory, but I enjoy doing it. I hope Jonathan, you enjoyed this as well.
Yeah. I'm still trying to find my feet with it, and hopefully I'll get more comfortable and I can be a little more open about the way I joke around and not
Oh,
so
I think it's,
serious.
dude, I
So,
think it's great.
uh,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think it's great. I
I
think
was
you're
a
here
little
spot on.
more, conservative this time. Get me a little more loosened up and casual at this thing. I'll probably be a lot more outgoing. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but yeah, everybody, thank you for listening. Please give back your feedback. Please share your feedback. Boundtotruth34@gmail.com, boundtotruth34@gmail.com. We should have a Facebook running up. I would say no later than Tuesday. But yeah, we're eventually hoping to evolve it where we can have people. And again, if you want to share some stories you would like to share to us to kind of share your own experiences, your own thoughts and beliefs, even this episode, again, what Jonathan said, fact checking us. Mostly welcome to, very welcome to it. Again, this is a total platform for everybody. It's not just about him and I. We're just being the voices on this, but we definitely want to involve everybody in the community to do this. And doesn't matter what belief, shape, size, whatever. We welcome you and we love you. We love you. You are a truly gift from God, and you should all be accepting that and feel loved by that. You are a truly gift from God, and we welcome you to this platform. So, other than that, I would say from Jonathan and I, man, till next time. And the next episode I'm working on for us is going to be, and this could change, but I'll say it, is about Aleister Crowley and the UFO connection. So
Hmm.
hopefully, yeah, we'll see about that. There's a lot, there's a lot of rabbit holes in that bad boy that I'm afraid I'm gonna hopefully don't get stuck into. But anyways, other than that, everybody have a great start of the week coming up. Be safe, God bless, and we'll talk to you soon.
Go Rams.
Go Rams!
All right.
All right,
All
have a
right.
good
See
night,
ya.
everybody.
All right. Bye.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.